When a woman truly understands her value, she no longer feels the need to chase, prove, or beg for a man's attention. That kind of energy changes everything. See, men are hunters by nature. When something is too available, too easy, too desperate to be chosen, it loses its spark. A woman who detaches isn't doing it to play games. She's doing it because she knows that if a man isn't bringing peace, purpose, and presence to her life, he simply doesn't belong there. And that scares a man more than anything. Because a woman who walks away is a woman who forces him to level up. When a woman learns to detach, she unlocks one of the most powerful forms of self-respect. It's not about being cold, and it's definitely not about playing games. It's about understanding her own value so deeply that she no longer needs to cling to anyone or anything that doesn't serve her growth. Detachment isn't an act of indifference. It's a reflection of deep confidence. A woman who is secure in who she is doesn't wait around for someone to validate her. She becomes the validation. And that energy is felt instantly. People notice it, especially men. When a man meets a woman who is emotionally grounded, who doesn't react out of fear or desperation, it throws him off in the best way. He's used to women overextending themselves to gain his attention. But this one, she's calm, composed, unbothered. She gives off a message without saying a word. I know what I bring to the table. I'm not afraid to eat alone. A confident woman doesn't chase because she doesn't need to. Her detachment isn't based on arrogance. It's rooted in the belief that love is not meant to be forced. That if someone wants to be in her life, they will make that effort. And if they don't, she doesn't fall apart. She doesn't beg. She doesn't lower her standards just to keep someone around. Instead, she stays in her lane, focused on her own path, trusting that the right people will match her energy. This inner peace and poise make her incredibly magnetic. That more than anything draws a man in. That's inclusion and carrying emotional games. Her silence becomes her phone. That's her drama. Her boundaries become her beauty. And that, more than anything, draws a man in. In a world where emotional neediness is common, detachment stands out. It's not about pretending not to care. It's about caring more about your peace than you do about forcing a connection. That kind of mindset shifts the dynamic. Men are naturally drawn to what they can't easily conquer. When a woman isn't constantly available, when her attention is earned and not just handed out, it creates respect. A man begins to wonder what's different about her. Why is she so composed? Why isn't she reacting like others have? And that curiosity pulls him closer. Detachment gives a woman the upper hand not by manipulating, but by refusing to be controlled by emotions or external approval. She becomes attractive not just for her looks or charm, but because of how she carries herself. She don't settle for crumbs because she knows she deserves the whole meal. She don't tolerate emotional roller coasters because her peace is her priority. And that inner strength sends a clear signal to every man she interacts with. You don't complete me. I'm already whole. That's when a man realizes he can't just do the bare minimum. That's when he starts respecting her time, her energy, her presence. He understands that he's dealing with someone who won't be easily impressed, someone who knows how to walk away without hesitation if she's not treated right. It takes a strong woman to detach in a world that constantly tells her to hold on, to fix, to prove her worth. But the truth is, detachment is what shows real worth. It shows that she's not controlled by temporary emotions. It shows that she values herself enough to let go of what's not aligned. And the moment a man sees that strength, everything shifts. Because deep down, even if he won't admit it, that's the kind of woman he wants. Not someone who follows him blindly, but someone who leads her own life with grace and direction. A woman who can detach with love, who can move on with peace, is a woman who becomes unforgettable. That's the kind of confidence that makes her truly attractive, because it comes from within. There's a truth about men that often goes unspoken. They are naturally wired to pursue what they perceive as rare, valuable, and not easily accessible. This isn't just about ego or dominance. This is about human psychology. When something or someone is too easy to get, it's often taken for granted. But when a woman knows her worth and makes herself less available emotionally, mentally, or physically, something powerful happens. She becomes the challenge. She becomes the prize. And whether a man realizes it consciously or not, his attention, his interests, and even his emotions begin to chase what seems just out of reach. That's where the energy shifts. A woman who knows how to detach, who doesn't throw herself into someone else's life without reciprocity, naturally raises her value in a man's eyes. She becomes the one who stands out from the crowd, not by doing more, but by doing less with intention. Men don't always understand why they suddenly start thinking about the woman who didn't call back, who didn't reply right away, who didn't seem impressed by his charm. But the answer is simple. She triggered something deep inside him. She represented something he couldn't fully grasp or control. That's exactly what sparks attraction. Not the woman who says yes to everything, not the one who's always available, but the one who maintains her mystery, her boundaries, and her pride. A man begins to see her not as someone to conquer, but as someone to earn. That mental shift is crucial, because once a man feels he has to earn a woman, he values her more. He invests more. And no man ever walks away easily from something he's worked hard to get. Many women fall into the trap of overgiving and over-explaining, thinking it will bring them closer to the man they want. But in reality, that kind of behavior often has the opposite effect. When a woman makes herself too emotionally available too soon, she unintentionally takes away the excitement of the chase. Men are not emotionally wired to appreciate what is handed to them without effort. It's not about playing games. It's about understanding that emotional restraint can be more powerful than emotional openness when it's too early or one-sided. A man begins to see that this woman isn't desperate for his love. She's selective. She has options. And even if she likes him, she's not going to bend over backward just to keep his attention. That level of discipline is rare. And anything rare automatically becomes valuable. Think about it. Even outside of relationships, what do people treasure most? Things that are hard to get, hard to understand, hard to possess. The same principle applies here. A woman who doesn't give access to her heart, her time, or her energy freely becomes a symbol of value, not because she's trying to be difficult, but because she understands that not everyone deserves her. That self-awareness radiates in everything she does, from how she speaks to how she moves. And the man watching her feels it. He might act like it doesn't matter, but deep inside, he's wondering what he needs to do to gain her approval, her attention, her affection. When a woman becomes rare, she becomes unforgettable. Her presence lingers in a man's mind, not because of what she did, but because of what she didn't do. She didn't beg, she didn't chase, and she didn't settle. She made him rise. She made him question his own effort. She challenged his comfort zone. And once that happens, the whole game changes. Men don't fall for what's obvious. They fall for what makes them think, what makes them feel uncertain in the best way, what makes them realize that they could lose something valuable if they don't step up. That's the power of being rare. And when a woman embodies that energy, she doesn't have to chase anyone, because suddenly everyone wants to chase her. There's a quiet kind of strength that comes from knowing you can walk away at any moment. When a woman carries that energy, she holds a power that can't be faked or forced. It's not loud, it's not dramatic. It's a calm certainty that says, I am enough, with or without you. That kind of confidence shifts the entire dynamic in any relationship. A woman who can walk away doesn't beg for love. She doesn't compromise her dignity for attention, and she definitely doesn't stay where she's not respected. And the moment a man senses that she's not afraid to leave, he understands that he must bring more to the table than charm and promises. He has to bring consistency, effort, and honesty, because this woman won't tolerate anything less. Most men don't realize how strong a woman is until she walks away. That's when it hits. The silence, the distance, the absence, it speaks louder than words ever could. A woman who can let go of someone she once cared about is a woman who has done the inner work. She has healed, grown, and reached a place where her peace matters more than any temporary emotion. She doesn't need closure from someone who never gave her clarity. She doesn't need validation from someone who couldn't value her. She becomes her own closure, her own validation, her own peace. That independence is not only attractive, it's transformational. It forces a man to reflect on his actions, to reconsider how he treated her, and to wonder if he'll ever find someone like her again. In every relationship, power doesn't come from control, it comes from detachment. The ability to detach when your standards are not met is the ultimate power move. It's not about winning or losing, it's about self-respect. When a woman can walk away, it means she's not emotionally dependent on someone to complete her. She doesn't stay because she's afraid of being alone. She stays if she's valued, and she leaves if she's not. That's the kind of clarity that keeps her from wasting time on one-sided situations. It saves her from emotional exhaustion, from disappointment, from constantly questioning her worth. She doesn't entertain maybes, she only deals in certainty. And if a man can't provide that, she doesn't complain, she simply exits. A woman like this becomes unforgettable because she knows her boundaries and keeps them firm. She isn't afraid to love deeply, but she refuses to love foolishly. She understands that love without respect is nothing. She would rather walk away with her pride intact than stay in something that drains her soul. And when she walks, she doesn't look back. She doesn't send a late-night text. She doesn't stalk his social media. She doesn't wait by the phone hoping he'll change. She moves on with grace, not because she didn't care, but because she cared enough for herself to choose peace. This kind of strength isn't easy to develop. It takes heartbreak, growth, and deep self-awareness. It takes choosing yourself over and over again, even when it hurts. But once a woman masters the ability to walk away, she unlocks a version of herself that's unstoppable. She becomes the woman who inspires others, the woman who shows other women what it means to have standards, the woman who men remember long after she's gone, not because she made noise, but because her absence was louder than any presence they've ever felt. Men don't admit it often, but they respect the woman who walks away more than the one who stays, no matter how she's treated. There's something powerful about knowing you're not someone's only option and still having the courage to leave when you're not treated like a priority. That sends a message that says, I know my worth, and I won't stay where I'm not celebrated. That's the kind of woman who doesn't just change her life, she changes the standard. She teaches others how to treat her, not with words, but with her actions. And that silent strength speaks volumes. There's something undeniably magnetic about a woman who is emotionally independent. She walks into a room and you can feel it, not because she's trying to prove anything, but because she carries herself like someone who doesn't need anyone to complete her. She's not waiting for a man to rescue her from loneliness, to fill some emotional gap, or to make her feel whole. She's already whole. That kind of energy is rare, and it attracts high-value men like nothing else can. Men who have done the work on themselves, who know their purpose, who understand what a real partnership is, are drawn to women who aren't emotionally dependent. Because a woman who's grounded in herself doesn't drain others. She uplifts, inspires, and supports without losing her own identity. A woman who is emotionally independent doesn't react out of insecurity. She doesn't need constant reassurance. She doesn't fall apart when things don't go her way. And she doesn't look to others for happiness. She creates her own. Her strength doesn't come from how loud she is. It comes from how stable she is. She knows how to hold space for others without losing her own center. And that balance is what makes her so attractive to a man who also values his own peace and growth. High-value men are not looking for someone to fix. They're not looking for someone to chase after them with emotional chaos. They want someone who is solid, steady, and in tune with her own emotions. When a woman is emotionally independent, she's not easily shaken by delays, silence, or confusion. She doesn't overanalyze every message. She doesn't spiral into anxiety when a man pulls back for a moment. And she doesn't give her power away by begging for clarity. She knows who she is and what she brings. That doesn't mean she's cold or distant. It means she's centered. She feels deeply, but she doesn't let those emotions control her action. That kind of emotional discipline is powerful. It shows that she respects herself and others enough to maintain balance. She's not afraid to express her needs, but she does it from a place of maturity, not desperation. Men who have built something real in their lives, whether it's a business, a vision, or a strong sense of purpose, don't have the energy for emotional instability. They're drawn to peace, not chaos. And a woman who can manage her own emotions brings that peace into the relationship. She becomes a safe space, not a storm. She knows how to communicate without blaming, how to disagree without disrespect, and how to stay calm even when things are uncertain. That emotional strength builds trust. It tells a man that she won't crumble at the first sign of conflict, that she won't manipulate him with guilt or tears, and that she won't rely on him to fix what only she can heal. The most powerful part of emotional independence is that it allows a woman to choose a man, not need him. She doesn't settle out of fear. She doesn't tolerate disrespect just to avoid being alone. She chooses a relationship because it adds value to her already full life. And that energy, that's what turns a man's head. That's what makes him pause. That's what makes him realize he has to show up as his best self. Because she won't be impressed by potential. She's looking for presence. She's looking for real effort, real emotional intelligence, and real connection. A woman who can handle her own emotions doesn't demand constant attention or validation. She doesn't use drama to feel seen. She knows how to self-soothe, how to process her feelings, and how to show up with grace. That presence is rare, and when a man finds it, he knows he's found something special, not just a partner, but an equal. Someone who brings peace, depth, and clarity. Someone who can hold her own and still make room for love. That kind of woman doesn't chase anyone because she knows exactly what she's worth, and that's the kind of energy that attracts everything real. Detachment is often misunderstood. People think it means shutting down, becoming distant, or no longer caring, but real detachment isn't about being cold. It's about choosing clarity over chaos. It's about staying in control of your emotions instead of letting your emotions control you. When a woman practices true detachment, she isn't being rude, bitter, or unfeeling. She's being clear. She knows what's for her and what's not. She doesn't fight to stay where she's not appreciated, and she doesn't cling to situations that create confusion. That level of emotional discipline makes her powerful, not just in relationships, but in every area of her life. A woman who has mastered detachment can still love deeply, but she does it without losing herself. She can show up fully for someone without letting their actions dictate her peace. She can give without expecting, stay calm when others are chaotic, and walk away with grace when she's no longer respected. That's not heartlessness, that's strength. Detachment gives her the ability to protect her energy. She doesn't overextend herself to prove her worth. She doesn't chase anyone for clarity, attention, or commitment. She stands still in her truth, knowing that what's meant for her won't need to be forced, begged for, or manipulated into staying. When a woman moves from a place of detachment, she's not playing hard to get, she's being hard to forget. She creates space between her and the drama. She stops participating in things that drain her. She sets boundaries without guilt. That kind of emotional clarity is rare. Most people are reactive. They say too much when they feel too little. They argue just to be heard, and they chase connections that aren't rooted in mutual respect. But a detached woman doesn't do that. She understands that silence can be more powerful than 1,000 words. She doesn't give in to every impulse. She takes a step back and observes. She watches how someone shows up, how they respond to her boundaries, and how they behave when she stops trying. And based on that, she decides if they deserve access to her world. Control isn't about controlling other people. It's about controlling your own emotions, thoughts, and reactions. That's what detachment really is. It's having the discipline to remain balanced, even when things feel uncertain. It's knowing when to give and when to pull back. It's the ability to recognize when something no longer aligns with your peace and having the courage to let go. A detached woman knows that not every reaction deserves her energy. She's not afraid. There's a quiet, undeniable power in a woman who chooses rather than begs. A detached woman doesn't wait around hoping to be noticed or picked. She doesn't lower her standards just to feel seen. She moves through life with the awareness that she is the chooser. She is the one who decides who gets access to her time, her heart, her energy, and that awareness changes everything. She doesn't approach relationships with desperation or anxiety, but with calm confidence. She knows that her value isn't based on who accepts her, but on how she carries herself and the choices she makes. Begging for love, attention, or commitment is a form of self-betrayal. It sends the message that you're not enough on your own, that you need someone else's approval to feel worthy. But a detached woman doesn't operate from that place. She's already filled her own cup. She doesn't chase validation. She doesn't beg for affection. She chooses who aligns with her peace and lets go of anything that doesn't. And when she chooses, it's intentional. It's not based on fear of being alone, but on mutual respect and compatibility. She understands that love isn't real if it has to be begged for. Love must be given freely, not negotiated through emotional labor. When a man interacts with a woman like this, he feels the difference instantly. She's not clingy. She's not insecure. She's not waiting for him to lead her life. She's already leading her own. He realizes she's not someone he can impress with bare minimum effort. She has standards. She has boundaries. And more importantly, she has the strength to walk away if those standards are not met. That's when she becomes unforgettable. Not because she begged for attention, but because she withheld it when it wasn't earned. She's not rude or arrogant. She's selective. And that kind of energy commands respect. Choosing, not begging, means knowing your worth and living by it. It means being okay with walking away from someone you want because you know you deserve better. It means letting people go without losing yourself. A detached woman understands that not everyone is meant to stay, and not every connection is meant to turn into something permanent. She doesn't force love. She doesn't over-explain her worth. She simply continues moving forward, and the right people will follow naturally. The ones who don't, she blesses their departure and keeps her peace intact. Her detachment isn't a game. It's a sign of growth. There's nothing more attractive than a woman who values herself so much that she refuses to beg for anyone to stay. Her love is powerful, but it's not desperate. Her heart is open, but not unguarded. She chooses her relationships with the same care she chooses her goals, her habits, her environment. She knows that everything she allows into her life either adds to her peace or takes away from it. And anything that threatens that peace isn't worth keeping around. When a man senses that she has no fear of walking away, he understands that he has to show up with more than just potential. He has to be consistent, honest, and intentional, because she's not the type to settle for uncertainty. A detached woman has mastered the art of emotional discipline. She might feel deeply, but she doesn't let those feelings rule her. She makes decisions based on facts, not fantasies. She pays attention to actions, not promises. And that's why she thrives. She doesn't stay stuck in situations where she has to convince someone to choose her. She knows she is already enough. She doesn't demand attention, she attracts it naturally by living in alignment with her self-worth. She doesn't chase love, she becomes love. And love, real love, always meets her where she is, without the need for begging or pleading, because when a woman chooses herself first, everything real follows.